Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cat Tales, a Warrior Cats Reread podcast. I'm your host, Coffee, and today we'll be reading chapters 8 through 11 of A Dangerous Path, the fifth book in the first Warrior Cats arc. Where we last left off, Tiger Star has claimed another body. Unfortunately, it was Greypool, the fake mother of Stonefur and Mistyfoot, who are Bluestar's kids. Bluestar is just declining, just rapidly losing her mind, and we find out that Snowkit, Speckletail's only kit, and probably her last since she's the eldest queen in the nursery, is deaf. She has a hard time coming to terms with that. So overall, not a great time, but not the worst either. So let's get right into chapter 8. Quote, "The sun was rising over the trees as Fireheart and his patrol approached Snake Rocks on the opposite side of the territory to the river. The fire had not reached this far. The undergrowth was still lush and green, though leaves had begun to fall. Hold on, Fireheart meowed to Thornpaw as the apprentice dashed toward the rocks. Don't forget there are adders around here. Thornpaw skidded to a halt. Sorry, Fireheart. Since Bluestar had refused to make them warriors, Fireheart had made a point of spending time with all the apprentices in turn, including at least one of them in every patrol, in an attempt to show them that the clan still valued them. Swiftpaw's scowl suggested that he was resentful of the delay, but Thornpaw did not seem to mind waiting for a full warrior status. Mousefur, Thornpaw's mentor, padded up to him. Tell me what you can smell. Thornpaw stood with his head raised and jaws parted, drinking in the air. Mouse, he mewed almost at once, swiping his tongue around his mouth. Yes, but we're not hunting now, Mousefur reminded him. What else? The Thunderpath, over there. Thornpaw gestured with his tail. And dog. Fireheart, who had been lapping water from a hollow in the ground, pricked up his ears. Tasting the air, he realized that Thornpaw was right. There was a strong scent of dog, and it was fresh. Uh-oh, it's those dogs. That's odd, he commented. Unless the two legs were up very early, that scent should be stale. Last night at the latest. He remembered Whitestorm's report of finding trampled undergrowth and scattered pigeon feathers near Snake Rocks. The place had smelled of dog then, but that scent would not have survived for this long. We better take a good look around, he meowed. Ordering Thornpaw not to leave his mentor, Fireheart sent the other cats into the trees while he crept closer to the rocks. Before he reached them, he was called back by Mousefur. Come and look at this. Skirting a bramble thicket, Fireheart joined the brown warrior and looked down into a small, steep-sided clearing. There was a stagnant pool of greenish water at the bottom, choked with fallen leaves. The sharp scent of crushed ferns reached Fireheart's scent glands, but it was barely noticeable under the overpowering stench of dog. Pigeon feathers were scattered all around, and scraps of fur that might have been squirrel or rabbit. A little way down the slope, Thornpaw sniffed at a pile of dog dung and recoiled with a snort of disgust. Fireheart forced himself to take in every detail of the scene. Two-legged dogs didn't usually stay in the forest long enough to leave this many traces, trampling the undergrowth and scattering the remains of prey until the forest reeked like a fox's hole. Seeing it with his own eyes made him realize that something was definitely wrong. What do you think? Asked Mousefur. I don't know. Fireheart was reluctant to voice his worries. It looks as if there might be a dog loose in the forest, free from the two legs. Was that what those two legs had been looking for? He wondered, suddenly remembering the three who had come in the monster when he was hunting in Tall Pines with Sandstorm. But that had been a long way from here, on the other side of ThunderClan territory. I can see that he's gaining sentience. What are we going to do? Thornpaw piped up, looking unusually serious. I'll report it to Bluestar, Fireheart decided. If there is a dog wandering around in our territory, we'll need to do something about it. Maybe we can lead it away somehow. The dog was clearly taking prey that ThunderClan couldn't spare, and Fireheart didn't like to think of what might happen if it met one of the clan warriors face to face. As he turned away from the clearing and led the way back toward the camp, Fireheart could not help feeling that the forest around him had become strangely hostile. He knew every tree and stone, yet there was something in its depths. Not quite a scent, nor a sound, more like an echo on the edge of hearing, that he did not understand. Was it just a dog? Or were Bluestar's fears about to come true after all? Did StarClan have some other disaster in mind for ThunderClan? Interesting. So on the way back to camp, they run into Whitestorm's patrol. His patrol has a good haul with fat prey, although Whitestorm remarks that they had to go almost all the way to Four Trees to find it. Whitestorm reports that he has an important finding to discuss. Once they all return to camp, Fireheart, Whitestorm, and Mousefur all sit and gather to eat together and discuss. Quote, So what did you see? Fireheart asked when a few mouthfuls of wool had taken the edge off the hunger in his belly. He saw Whitestorm's expression darken and guessed the answer before the white warrior spoke. More scattered prey, Whitestorm meowed. Scraps of rabbit fur. And more dog scent. Not far from Four Trees this time, near the border with RiverClan. Fresh scent? Yesterday's, I'd guess. Fireheart nodded, anxiety prickling in his paws. Clearly the dog had ranged much further than he had first thought. Gulping down the last of his vole, he told Whitestorm what his dawn patrol had found that morning. The whole place stank, Mousefur contributed, looking up from her meal. There's a dog in our territory, isn't there? Killing our prey? Yes, I think so. Fireheart turned to Whitestorm. When you told me about the first lot of scent you found, I hoped that the dog would have gone home by now with its 2 legs. But it obviously hasn't. We'll have to get rid of it somehow, Whitestorm meowed grimly. I know. I'm going to report to Bluestar. She'll probably want to hold a clan meeting. Leaving Whitestorm and Mousefur, Fireheart padded across the camp toward the high rock. As Sunhigh approached, the life of the camp went on peacefully around him. Ashpaw and Swiftpaw were scuffling outside the apprentice's den. Near the warrior's den, Frostfur and Brindleface were sharing tongues, both of them looking half asleep after taking watch the previous night. In the center of the clearing, Speckletail was signaling with paws and tail to her kit, while Brackenfur looked on. A pang of fear struck deep into Fireheart as he imagined the havoc that the stray dog could create if it found the camp. He had almost reached Bluestar's den when Brackenfur got up and bounded across to him. Fireheart, may I have a word? Fireheart paused. If it's quick, I have to speak to Bluestar. It's Speckletail, Brackenfur explained. I'm worried about her. She thinks Snowkit should be an apprentice, and she's trying to mentor him herself. She thinks that if Bluestar sees that he can learn, she'll have to make him into a warrior. Now that Fireheart looked more closely at the mother and her kit, he could see that they weren't just playing. At least, Speckletail wasn't. She was showing Snowkit the hunting crouch. Snowkit seemed to be having fun, rolling over and batting at his mother with his paws, but he wasn't copying her movements with any accuracy. Fireheart watched them with growing sadness. It might be for the best, he sighed after a moment. If Speckletail realizes for herself that Snowkit can't learn, it might help her accept that he'll never be a warrior. Maybe. Brackenfur didn't sound convinced. I'd like to watch them for a bit, anyway, and see if there's anything I can do to help. Fireheart studied him approvingly. Though Brackenfur had not been a warrior for many moons, he had the serious air of a much older cat. He was ready for an apprentice, and Fireheart was sure he would make a fine mentor, patient and responsible. But not for Snowkit. Fireheart knew that the deaf kit could never have a mentor, would never travel to gatherings, or know the fierce joy of being a warrior in the service of his clan. However, as long as there were no other kits in need of mentors, it wouldn't hurt to let Brackenfur take an interest in Snowkit. That's fine, provided it doesn't interfere with your warrior duties, Fireheart mewed. If you think of anything, let me know. I'll talk to Cinderpelt again. Thanks, Fireheart, meowed Brackenfur. He settled himself on the ground, paws tucked neatly under his chest, and went on watching Speckletail and Snowkit. Fireheart hesitated, feeling sad for the deaf kit and his mother, and for Brackenfur, whose hopes of becoming a mentor would be disappointed this time. Then he turned away to go and find Bluestar. The clan leader was lying on her bedding in the far corner of her den. The sunlight did not reach her there, and she looked like a gray shadow. But the remains of a squirrel showed that she had eaten, and as Fireheart paused on the threshold, she was twisting her head around to wash her back. Fireheart felt encouraged by these signs of a normal routine. He scraped his claws on the ground to draw her attention, and when she turned to look at him, he meowed. Bluestar, may I come in? I've something to report. Nothing good, I suppose, Bluestar mewed sourly. Fireheart flinched at her tone, and the leader seemed to relent. All right, Fireheart, come in and tell me what's on your mind. We think there's a dog loose in the forest. Fireheart described the first time Whitestorm had discovered the scattered prey near Snake Rocks, what his patrol had seen that morning, and the rabbit remains that Whitestorm had found near 4 trees. Bluestar sat in silence, staring at the wall until Fireheart finished. Then her head snapped around to face him. Near 4 trees? Where? By the RiverClan border, Whitestorm said. Bluestar let out a snarl and dug her claws into the floor of her den. Yes, I see it all, she spat. WindClan have been hunting on our territory. Now she's just schizophrenic. 'Cause that is not what he said at all. Fireheart stared at her. I'm sorry, Bluestar, I don't understand. Then you're a fool, Bluestar growled. Suddenly she seemed to relax. No, Fireheart, you are a good and noble warrior. It's not your fault that you can't imagine the treachery of others. What does she mean? Fireheart thought. Has she forgotten that I was the one who told her about Tigerstar? His mind spinning, he realized that this wasn't one of Bluestar's good days. Her eyes were staring and her fur bristling as if rows of enemies stood in front of her. Perhaps, in her confusion, she thought they were. But Bluestar, Fireheart protested. Everywhere we found the scraps of prey, we sent it a dog. There's no reason to think that other clans are responsible. Mousebrain, Bluestar hissed, her tail lashing from side to side. Dogs don't behave like that. They come here with their 2 legs, and their 2 legs take them away again. Who ever heard of a dog roaming free in the forest? Just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it can't happen now, Fireheart meowed desperately. Why do you believe it was WindClan? Can't you see? Bluestar's voice was taut with fury. WindClan warriors were hunting rabbits, and the rabbits must have crossed the RiverClan border by 4 trees. RiverClan's territory is narrow there. The WindClan cats chased their prey across both borders onto ThunderClan territory before they caught it and killed it. She spoke with absolute certainty, as if she had witnessed it herself. It's so obvious a kit could see it. Her paws started working again. Well, WindClan had better watch out. Listen and learn, a schizophrenic is talking. She's just making stuff up. She's cooked. Fireheart's heart lurched. It sounded as if Bluestar were planning to attack WindClan. We can't bear any more trouble, he thought despairingly. An image popped into his head of Tigerstar on his way to visit Crooked Star and Leopardfur. With a possible alliance in the air between RiverClan and ShadowClan, the last thing they needed right now was a war with WindClan. You may be right, Bluestar, he admitted diplomatically. But we shouldn't blame WindClan without any real proof. It could have been RiverClan, couldn't it? Nonsense! Bluestar's voice was scornful. The cats of RiverClan would never cross a border in pursuit of prey. They know the warrior code better than that. Have you forgotten how they helped us in the fire? We would all have been burned or drowned if not for RiverClan. Yes, and Leopardfur won't let us forget it in a hurry, Fireheart added silently. He couldn't help thinking that RiverClan might believe a few rabbits were only the beginning of payment for their help. Fireheart shook his head to clear it. There was no point in trying to blame RiverClan. He knew what sense he had picked up. A dog was responsible for the scattered prey, and he had to make Bluestar see that. Bluestar, I really think, he began. Bluestar dismissed his words with a sweep of her tail. No, she insisted. It was you, Fireheart, who came to me after the last gathering and told me how Tallstar welcomed Tigerstar as leader of ShadowClan. Hardly welcomed, Fireheart tried to protest, but Bluestar ignored him. Have you forgotten how WindClan warriors stopped me from traveling to Highstones? And how they attacked you when you brought Cloudpaw home? They show no gratitude, none, for what ThunderClan did for them when you and Greystripe brought them home from exile. Tallstar is working with StarClan against me. He has allied himself with my greatest enemy, and now he and his warriors invade my territory. He's a disgrace to the name of warrior. Her eyes were wild, and her voice sank to a rough choking as if she could hardly get the words out. Thoroughly alarmed, Fireheart started to back out of the den. Bluestar, don't, he begged. You've been ill. This is bad for you. I'm going to fetch Cinderpelt. But before he could leave, a loud yowling broke out from the clearing. It was the sound of many cats raising their voices in a terrible screech of fear. Fireheart spun around and raced out of Bluestar's den. The center of the clearing was almost deserted, bathed in bright light where the normally leafy cover had been burned away. Cats crouched around the edges in the scant shelter of the charred fern walls. Fireheart caught a glimpse of Goldenflower and Willowpelt pushing their kits into the nursery. Brackenfur was nudging a couple of the elders toward their den, urging them to hurry. The cats at the edge of the clearing were staring up at the sky, their eyes huge with fear. As he looked upward, Fireheart heard the beating of wings and saw a hawk circling above the trees, its harsh cry drifting on the air. At the same time, he realized that one cat had not taken shelter. Snowkit was still tumbling and playing in the middle of the open space. Snowkit! Speckletail yowled desperately. She was just emerging from behind the nursery, the place where the queens went to make dirt, and she darted toward her kid as soon as she realized what was happening. In the same heartbeat, the hawk plunged down toward the clearing. Snowkit screamed as the cruel talons fastened onto his back. The great wings flapped. Fireheart raced forward, but Speckletail was faster still. As the hawk lifted off, she sprang upward and snagged her claws in the white kit's fur. For a couple of agonizing moments, both cats dangled from the hawk's claws. Fireheart launched himself into the air, but they were too high. Then the hawk released the kit with one foot and scored its talons across Speckletail's face. The she-cat lost her grip and fell back, landing heavily on the ground. Without her weight, the hawk mounted rapidly to treetop height and flew off toward Fort Trees. Snowkit's terrified crying died away. No! Speckletail threw her head back and let out a yowl of pure desperation. My kit! Oh, my kit! Brackenfur dashed past Fireheart, leaping the camp wall at a place where the rebuilding had barely started, and vanished into the forest. Even though Fireheart knew the pursuit was hopeless, he swung around and caught the eye of the nearest cat. Swiftpaw, go with him. Swiftpaw opened his mouth to protest, clearly aware that the pursuit would be hopeless, then closed it again and took off after Brackenfur. The rest of the cats, stunned by shock, gradually crept out into the clearing again and formed a ragged circle around Speckletail. He couldn't hear, Sandstorm murmured, touching her nose to Fireheart's cheek. He couldn't hear the hawk, and he couldn't hear us when we tried to warn him. It's my fault, Speckletail wailed. I left him, and now he's gone. The hawk should have taken me instead. Sandstorm moved closer to the tabby queen, pressing herself comfortingly against her side, and Cinderpelt came up and gave her ears a gentle lick. Come to my den, she mewed softly. We'll look after you. We won't leave you. But Speckletail refused to be comforted. He's gone, and it's my fault, she whimpered. It's not your fault, meowed Bluestar. Fireheart turned to see his leader pacing toward them. The broad-shouldered gray she-cat looked strong and determined, more like a warrior than any of the other cats, crushed as they were by the tragedy of Snowkit's loss. It's not your fault, she repeated. Who ever heard of a hawk that dared to swoop down and take a kit from the middle of a camp with so many other cats around? This is a sign from StarClan. I cannot deny the truth any longer. Bluestar gazed at her shocked assembled clan, and her voice vibrated with anger. StarClan is at war with ThunderClan. That's the end of chapter 9. Honestly, I can see her logic there. Like, personally, I'm not religious, I'm an atheist, so when things happen, I don't believe there's, like, a god or spirits or anything controlling what happens behind the scenes, but because their religion, StarClan, it's just at the forefront of clan life and culture, I can understand why she thinks this, because so much bad stuff has happened recently, and she was majorly betrayed by Tigerstar that, honestly, I can see how she went a bit crazy. Moving right along to chapter 9, quote, as her clan stared at her in horror, Bluestar spun around and stalked away to her den. Fireheart took a pace after her, but without turning her head, she snapped, Leave me alone! There was so much venom in her voice that Fireheart stopped in his tracks. What am I supposed to do now? He asked himself. He could see that the clan was on the edge of panic. The shock of the Hawk's attack, and Bluestar's interpretation of it, was turning them into frightened kits. His own legs were shaking, but he pushed his fears away and sprang onto the high rock. Listen, he called. Gather round, all of you. Gradually the cats obeyed him, creeping into a huddle at the base of the rock. Several of them glanced fearfully up at the sky as if they expected the Hawk to return. Fireheart noticed Fernpaw pressing close to Dustpelt, and Longtail crouched on the ground as if he thought StarClan were going to start raining fire on them there and then. And then Fireheart spotted Cloudpaw. The apprentice was gazing around in bewilderment. What's all the fuss about? He meowed to Brightpaw. Every cat knows StarClan is just a tale for kids. They can't really do anything to us. Brightpaw faced him with shock in her eyes. Cloudpaw, that's not true, she exclaimed. Come on. Cloudpaw gave her an affectionate flick with his tail. You don't really believe that load of thistledown, do you? He showed his indifference by sitting down and giving his paws a thorough wash. Okay, Atheist King. Fireheart stared down at his apprentice with cold dread chilling the blood in his veins. He had known for a long time that Cloudpaw had no respect for the warrior code, but he had not realized that his apprentice did not believe in StarClan at all. On the other side of the clearing, Cinderpelt and Brindleface were gently guiding Speckletail in the direction of Cinderpelt's den. Cinderpelt stopped, mewed something rapidly to Brindleface, and came limping back toward the rock. I think you might need me, Fireheart, she mewed. But make it quick. I have to take care of Speckletail. Fireheart nodded. Cats of ThunderClan, he began, raising his voice. We've just seen something terrible. No cat can deny that. But we have to be careful about what meaning we give to this tragedy. Cinderpelt, is Bluestar right? Does this mean that StarClan have abandoned us? Cinderpelt spoke up clearly from where she sat at the base of the rock. No, she meowed. StarClan haven't shown me anything to suggest this. The camp is more exposed since the fire, so it's not surprising that the Hawk could see its prey. So it was just an accident that we lost Snowkit, Fireheart prompted. Just an accident, Cinderpelt repeated. Nothing to do with StarClan. Fireheart saw the clan begin to relax and realized that Cinderpelt's certainty had reassured them. The cats still looked shocked and grief-stricken that Snowkit had been snatched away, but the wild stares of panic were fading. But along with his relief came the worry that once the clan had recovered from their shock, they would start asking themselves why Bluestar had gone so far as to declare war on their warrior ancestors in StarClan. Thank you, Cinderpelt, Fireheart meowed. Cinderpelt flicked her tail and limped quickly toward her den. Fireheart took a step forward on top of the rock and gazed down at the upturned faces. There's something else I need to tell you, he began. He wasn't at all sure he should be saying this, since Bluestar insisted that WindClan was responsible for the dead rabbits, but with the safety of the clan at stake, he couldn't keep silent. We think there's a dog loose on ThunderClan territory. We haven't seen it, but we've scented it at Snake Rocks and near 4 trees. An anxious murmur rose from the cats, and Sandstorm called out, What about the dogs at the farm beyond WindClan territory? Maybe it's one of those. Maybe, Fireheart agreed, remembering how the savage creatures had chased him in Sandstorm while they were searching for Cloudpaw. Until it goes away again, he went on, we all have to be especially careful. Apprentices mustn't go out without a warrior, and all cats who leave camp have an extra duty. Look for traces of this dog. Scent, paw marks, scattered scraps of prey, and dung, Mousefur put in. The filthy creatures never think of burying it. Right, meowed Fireheart. If you come across anything like that, report it to me right away. We need to find out where the dog has made its den. As he gave his orders, he did his best to hide his growing sense of dread. He could not stifle the feeling that the forest was watching him, concealing a deadly enemy somewhere among the trees. At least the threat from Tigerstar was a straightforward fear of attack from a known enemy. This hidden dog was another matter, unseen and unpredictable. So Fireheart starts for Cinderpelt's den, but he spots Brackenfur and Swiftpaw returning. From the dejection in their stances, he knew there was no luck rescuing Snowkit. Brackenfur apologizes, and Swiftpaw remarks on how it was a waste of time from the start, but he is visibly frustrated with their failure. With that, Fireheart orders the two to get some rest, then goes to visit Speckletail in Cinderpelt's den, Sandstorm joining him. Quote, Cinderpelt emerged from the cleft in the rock carrying a folded leaf in her mouth, which she set down on the ground in front of Speckletail. Poppy seeds, she mewed. Eat them, Speckletail, and they'll make you sleep. At first, Fireheart thought Speckletail had not heard her. Then she half sat up, turned her head, and slowly licked up the poppy seeds from the leaf. I'll never have any more kits, she mewed, her voice hoarse. I'll be going to join the elders now. And they'll welcome you, Sandstorm murmured, crouching beside the older cat as the poppy seeds took effect and her head gradually lowered into sleep. Fireheart glanced admiringly at Sandstorm. She was a skilled warrior, and he had reason to know the sharpness of her tongue, but she had a gentle side too. He was roused from his thoughts when he heard Cinderpelt clearing her throat, and he saw that the medicine cat had padded over to sit beside him. From the look she was giving him, he realized that she must have spoken to him and was waiting for a response. Sorry, what? He mewed. If you're not too busy to listen, Cinderpelt meowed dryly. I said that I'll keep Speckletail with me overnight. Oh, she is jealous of him in Sandstorm. Interesting. Good idea, thanks. Fireheart remembered that Cinderpelt had been with Speckletail when he had been telling the clan about the loose dog. There's something else you need to know, and I'd like you to have another look at Bluestar. Oh? What's the matter with her? Speaking softly so that Sandstorm did not hear him, Fireheart told Cinderpelt about the evidence that a dog was loose in the forest, and how Bluestar was convinced that it must be WindClan invading ThunderClan territory to steal prey. "She's so confused," he finished. "She must be, to declare war on StarClan like that. And there's a gathering in a few nights. What's going to happen if she starts accusing WindClan in front of the other cats?" "Now wait a minute," Cinderpelt meowed. "This is your clan leader you're talking about. You should respect her opinions even if you don't agree with them." "This isn't just a disagreement," Fireheart protested. "There isn't a scrap of proof for what she suggests." His raised voice made Sandstorm prick up her ears as she lay beside Speckletail, and he lowered it again as he added, "Bluestar was a great leader. Every cat knows that. But now, I can't trust her judgment, Cinderpelt. Not when she isn't making any sense. You should still try to understand her. Show her a bit of sympathy, at least. She deserves that from every cat." For a few heartbeats, Fireheart felt outraged that Cinderpelt, who had once been his apprentice, should be talking to him like this. It wasn't Cinderpelt who had to defend Bluestar's decisions and try to hide her confusions so that her own clan still trusted her. Not to mention making excuses for her to all the other clans so that no cat would guess the weakness at ThunderClan's heart. "Do you think I haven't tried?" he snapped. "If I'm any more sympathetic, my fur will fall out." "Your fur looks fine to me," Cinderpelt remarked. "Look." Fireheart made one last effort to suppress his annoyance. "Bluestar missed the last gathering. If she doesn't go to the next one, every cat in the forest will know something's wrong. Can't you give her something to make her a bit more reasonable?" "I'll try, but there's a limit to what my herbs can do. She's gotten over the effects of the fire, you know. This trouble started long before that, when she first found out about Tigerstar. She's old and tired, and she thinks she's losing everything she believed in, even StarClan." "Especially StarClan," Fireheart agreed. "And if she—" He broke off, realizing that Sandstorm had left Speckletail and was walking toward him. "Finished talking secrets?" she mewed with an edge to her voice. Bruh, the girls are fighting over him. Oh my god. Tea. Flicking her tail toward Speckletail, she added, "She's asleep. I'll leave her to you, Cinderpelt. Thanks for your help, Sandstorm." Both she-cats were being very polite to each other, but somehow Fireheart felt it wouldn't take much for them to unsheath their claws. He wondered why, then decided he didn't have time to worry about petty squabbles. "Fireheart, you are dumb as a rock. It's because they both like you." "We'll go and eat then," he meowed. "And afterward you need to rest," Sandstorm told him. "You've been on your paws since dawn." She gave him a nudge, propelling him toward the main clearing. Before he had taken more than a couple of paces, Cinderpelt called after him. "Send some fresh kill for me and Speckletail. If you've got time, that is." "Of course I've got time." Fireheart felt completely baffled by the tension that had chilled the air. "I'll see to it right away." "Good." Cinderpelt gave him a curt nod, and Fireheart felt her blue gaze trained on his back all the way across the clearing. "Okay, girl, relax. He's the deputy. Basically the leader at this point, since Bluestar is just hiding away and going crazy by herself. And also, you're a medicine cat. You're not allowed to take a mate or have kids. So, I am honestly team Cinderpelt and Fireheart, if the rules weren't a thing. They make more sense together than him and Sandstorm, in my opinion. But, unfortunately, that's not possible. So, anyway, that's the end of Chapter 9. Alright, Chapter 10. ThunderClan waits on the hill to four trees, stars lighting up the sky and fallen leaves coating the ground. Black shapes of cats mingle in the hollow below. Bluestar had insisted on leading her clan this time, which Fireheart believes isn't a good sign, even though it is good that she's showing up. It's much harder to present a brave face to the other clans, and he admits to himself that he can't really trust Bluestar's judgment anymore. Quote, he edged toward her, out of earshot of Cloudpaw and Mousefur, who were beside him. "Bluestar," he murmured, "what will you—" As if she hadn't heard him, Bluestar signaled with her tail, and the ThunderClan cats sprang to their paws and raced down through the bushes into the hollow. Fireheart had no option but to follow. Before they left the camp, Bluestar had refused to talk about the coming gathering, and now his last chance to discuss it with her had gone. Oh, she's gonna go on a schizo ramble, isn't she? Down in the hollow, there were fewer cats than Fireheart had expected, and he realized they were all from WindClan and ShadowClan. He spotted Tallstar and Tigerstar seated side by side at the base of the great rock. Bluestar walked straight past them, her tail as stiff as if she were advancing on an enemy. Without acknowledging them with so much as the flick of a whisker, she leaped up to the great rock and sat there, her gray-blue fur glowing in the moonlight. Fireheart took a deep breath and tried to calm the fears that welled inside him. Bluestar had already convinced herself that Tallstar was her enemy. To see the WindClan leader talking privately with Tigerstar, the traitor Bluestar feared most, would make her sure that she was right. As he watched, Fireheart saw Tallstar lean over to Tigerstar and meow something. Tigerstar flicked his tail dismissively. Fireheart wondered if he should creep closer to listen to what they were saying. But before he could move, he felt a friendly nudge at his shoulder and looked around to see One Whisker, a warrior of WindClan. "Hi there," One Whisker meowed. "Do you remember who this is?" He pushed a young cat forward, a tabby with bright eyes and ears pricked with excitement. "This is Morningflower's Kit," One Whisker explained. "He's my apprentice now, Gore's-Paw. Isn't he big now?" "Morningflower's Kit, of course. I saw you at the last gathering." Fireheart still found it hard to believe that this well-muscled apprentice was the same scrap of fur whom he had carried across the Thunderpath when he and Greystripe brought WindClan home. "Mother told me about you, Fireheart," Gorsepaw mewed shyly. "How you carried me and everything?" "Well, I'm glad I don't have to carry you now," Fireheart replied. "If you grow much more, you'll be able to join LionClan." Gorsepaw purred happily. Fireheart was sharply aware of the warm friendship that he felt for these cats, which had survived all the skirmishing and disagreements since that long-ago journey. "We should be starting the meeting," One Whisker went on, "but there's no sign of RiverClan." The words were hardly out of his mouth when there was a stir among the bushes at the other side of the clearing. A group of RiverClan cats appeared, padding close together into the open. Stalking proudly at their head was Leopardfur. "Where's Crookedstar?" One Whisker wondered out loud. "I heard he's ill," Fireheart meowed, realizing that he wasn't surprised to see Leopardfur taking her leader's place. From what Greystripe had told him by the river half a moon ago, he hadn't expected the RiverClan leader to be well enough to attend a gathering. Leopardfur walked straight toward the base of the great rock, where Tallstar and Tigerstar were sitting. She dipped her head courteously and settled down beside them. Fireheart was too far away to hear what they were saying, and he was distracted a moment later as a familiar grey warrior bounded across the clearing to his side. "Greystripe!" Fireheart gave a welcoming mew. "I thought you weren't allowed to come to gatherings." "I wasn't," replied Greystripe, touching noses with his friend. "But Stonefur said I should have a chance to prove my loyalty." "Stonefur?" Fireheart echoed. He had noticed both of Bluestar's kits, Stonefur and his sister Mistyfoot, among the cats who followed Leopardfur. "What's it got to do with him?" "Stonefur's our new deputy," meowed Greystripe. He frowned. "Oh, of course you don't know. Crookedstar died 2 nights ago. Leopardstar is our leader now." Fireheart was silent for a moment, remembering the dignified old cat who had helped ThunderClan during the fire. The news of Crookedstar's death didn't surprise him, but it still brought a pang of anxiety. Leopardstar would be a strong leader, good for RiverClan, but she had no love for ThunderClan. "She's already started to reorganize the clan, even though it's barely a day since she went to the Moonstone to speak with StarClan," Greystripe went on, pulling a face. "Supervising the apprentice training, ordering more patrols, and..." He broke off, his paws working on the ground in front of him. "Greystripe?" Fireheart was alarmed at his friend's clear agitation. "What's the matter?" Greystripe lifted anguished yellow eyes to gaze at his friend. "There's something you ought to know, Fireheart." He took a quick glance around to make sure no RiverClan cats were within earshot. "Ever since the fire, Leopardfur has been planning how to get Sunning Rocks back." I don't think you should be telling me that," Fireheart stammered, staring at his friend in dismay. Sunning Rocks was a long-disputed territory on the border between ThunderClan and RiverClan. Oakheart and the former ThunderClan deputy, Redtail, had both died in battle over them. For Greystripe to tell Fireheart of his new leader's intentions was an act of betrayal that went completely against the warrior code. "I know, Fireheart." Greystripe couldn't meet his gaze, and his voice shook with the weight of what he was doing. "I've tried to be a loyal warrior of RiverClan. No cat could have tried harder." His voice was rising in desperation, but with a huge effort he managed to control himself and go on in a lower voice. "But I can't sit by and do nothing while Leopardstar plans to attack ThunderClan. If it comes to a battle, I don't know what I'll do." Fireheart moved closer, trying to comfort the Grey Warrior. He had always known, ever since Greystripe had crossed the river, that sooner or later his friend would have to face the ordeal of fighting against his birth clan. Now it seemed as if that day had suddenly drawn closer. "When is this attack going to happen?" he asked. Greystripe shook his head. "I've no idea. Even if Leopardstar has decided, she wouldn't tell me. I only know about the plan from what the other warriors have said. But I'll see what I can find out, if you like." For a moment, Fireheart was excited by the thought of having a spy in the RiverClan camp. Then he realized what a fearful risk Greystripe would be taking. He couldn't put his friend in that much danger, or add to the pain of his divided loyalties. Unless ThunderClan struck first, without waiting for Leopardstar to attack, which Fireheart didn't want to do, they would just have to deal with the threat when it arose. "No, it's too dangerous," Fireheart replied. "I'm grateful for the warning, but think what Leopardstar would do to you if she found out. She doesn't exactly like you as it is. I'll tell all the hunting patrols to keep checking Sunning Rocks for RiverClan scent, and make sure our scent markings are strong there." Yowling from the top of the great rock interrupted him. He turned to see that the other 3 leaders had joined Bluestar, who still refused to look at Tigerstar, and were waiting to begin the meeting. When the cats had fallen silent, Tigerstar nodded to Leopardstar, indicating that she should speak first. The golden tabby took a place at the front of the rock and looked down. "Our former leader Crookedstar has gone to join StarClan," she announced. "He was a noble leader, and all his clan mourns his passing. I am leader of RiverClan now, and Stonefur is my deputy. Last night I traveled to High Stones and received my 9 lives from StarClan." "Congratulations," meowed Tigerstar, while Tallstar mewed. "Crookedstar will be missed by all the clans, but may StarClan grant that RiverClan thrives under your leadership." Leopardstar thanked them and looked expectantly at Bluestar, but the ThunderClan leader was gazing down into the hollow. There was an expression of pride on her face, and when Fireheart followed her gaze, he saw that she was looking at Stonefur. The obvious admiration for her son shocked him, and his heart grew cold when he remembered that Tigerstar knew a pair of ThunderClan kits had once been taken in by RiverClan. Fireheart couldn't help noticing that Tigerstar's gaze was trained on Bluestar, and the massive tabby had a thoughtful look on his face. What would it take for him to guess who the mother of those kits has been? Not much, since Bluestar isn't being subtle about it and staring right at him. I have one more piece of clan news, Leopardstar meowed, obviously deciding that she had waited long enough for Bluestar to speak. One of our elders, Greypool, is dead. Fireheart's ears pricked. He wondered what Mistyfoot and Greystripe had told their leader about Greypool's death, and if he had left any of his own scent on her body. Leopardstar could possibly use that to accuse ThunderClan of killing the old cat, to give her clan an excuse to attack. But when Leopardstar went on, it was only to say, she was a brave warrior and the mother of many kits. She paused to cast a sympathetic glance at Mistyfoot and Stonefur. Her clan mourns her, she finished. Fireheart relaxed, then felt himself tense again as Tigerstar stepped forward. Would the ShadowClan leader announce what he knew about 2 of Greypool's kits? To his relief, Tigerstar made no mention of the secret. Instead, he gave news of ShadowClan kits that had been made into apprentices and the birth of a new litter. Details that showed how ShadowClan was beginning to recover its strength, but nothing that suggested hostility to any other clan. Hope flared in Fireheart again. Perhaps there really was no need to keep worrying about a threat from Tigerstar. It would be a relief to forget him and concentrate on the lurking threat of the dog in the forest. Then Fireheart remembered the ShadowClan leader's brutal treatment of Greypool, which had led to her death, and all his suspicions returned. So he has no trust in Bluestar, but is giving Tigerstar the benefit of the doubt. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, Fireheart. When Tigerstar had finished speaking, Tallstar moved to take his place, but Bluestar thrust herself in front of the WindClan leader. I will speak next, she growled, giving Tallstar a hard stare. She stalked to the front of the rock. Cats of all clans, she began, her voice coldly angry. I bring news of theft. WindClan warriors have been hunting in ThunderClan territory. Fireheart's heart lurched as angry yowling broke out all over the hollow. The WindClan cats sprang to their paws, furiously denying the ThunderClan leader's accusation. Cloudpaw scrambled around 2 bigger warriors and came to a halt beside Fireheart, his blue eyes wide with shock and excitement. WindClan, he meowed. What's she talking about? Be quiet, Fireheart snapped. He glanced at One Whisker, afraid that he might have overheard Cloudpaw's outburst, but the tabby warrior was on his paws, yowling defiance at Bluestar. Prove it, he called, his fur bristling. Prove that WindClan have taken so much as a mouse. I have proof. Bluestar's eyes blazed cold fire. Our patrols found remains of rabbits scattered not far from here. You call that proof? Tallstar shouldered his way forward to stand nose to nose with Bluestar. Did you see my cats on your territory? Did your patrols find WindClan scent? I don't need to see or smell thieves to know what they have done, Bluestar retorted. Every cat knows that only WindClan hunts rabbits. Fireheart's muscles tensed, and he instinctively unsheathed his claws. All this is a pile of mouse dung, Tallstar insisted. His black and white fur was fluffed out, and his lips were drawn back in a snarl. WindClan have lost prey as well. We have found rabbit remains on our territory, too. And there are far fewer rabbits than usual this season. I accuse you, Bluestar, of letting your warriors hunt on our land and making false accusations to cover up the theft. That seems far more likely, Tigerstar put in, his amber eyes gleaming. Every cat knows that prey has been scarce on ThunderClan territory since the fire. Your clan is hungry, Bluestar, and some of your warriors know WindClan territory very well. Not him stirring the pot. Fireheart felt the ShadowClan leader's gaze rest on him, and knew Tigerstar meant him and Greystripe. Bluestar whipped around to face the ShadowClan leader. Silence, she hissed. Stay away from me and my clan. This is no business of yours. It is the business of every cat in the forest, Tigerstar replied calmly. The gathering is supposed to be a time of peace. If StarClan are angered, we will all suffer. StarClan, Bluestar spat back at him. StarClan have turned away from us, and I will fight them if I have to. I care only for feeding my clan, and I will not stand by while other cats steal our prey. Her speech was almost drowned by the shocked gasps of the cats listening below. Fireheart couldn't help glancing up to see if StarClan would show their fury by sending a cloud to cover the moon and end the gathering, as they had done once before. But the sky remained clear. Did that mean StarClan had accepted Bluestar's declaration of war? Greystripe nudged him. What's the matter with Bluestar? Does she want to pick a fight with WindClan? And what's all this about fighting StarClan? I don't know what she wants, Fireheart muttered. I think she's right about the rabbits, and who cares what a stupid old tradition says about keeping the peace at the gatherings, meowed Cloudpaw. Let's face it, StarClan was just thought up by some leader to scare the other cats into being obedient. Let's talk about that. And let's start that discussion, actually. Let's start that discussion, because he may be onto something. That's so tea. But also, it is pretty clear StarClan does exist in this universe, so Cloudpaw is wrong, but tea. Fireheart shot his apprentice a disapproving glance, but there was no time to discuss his attitude toward their warrior ancestors. His heart thudded as if he were about to leap into battle. There was no way of hiding Bluestar's madness and ThunderClan's vulnerability from the other clans now. Tallstar bristled with fury. So far, Leopardstar had not joined in the argument, but she wore the expression of a cat who was about to sink her teeth into a juicy piece of freshkill. When the noise in the hollow had died down, Tallstar made himself heard. Bluestar, I swear by StarClan that no cat from WindClan is hunted on your territory. His tail lashed from side to side. But if you insist on fighting with us, we will be ready. He retreated from the edge of the rock and turned his back on Bluestar, a pointed refusal to defend himself any further. Before Bluestar could retaliate, Leopardstar stepped forward. "The fire was a terrible misfortune," she meowed. "Every cat in the forest knows that, but yours is not the only clan to suffer recently. Your forest will grow back as rich in prey as it ever was. But two legs have invaded our territory, and they show no signs of leaving. Last Leaf Bear, the river was poisoned, and cats who ate the fish fell ill. Who can guarantee it won't happen again? I cannot speak for WindClan's needs, but RiverClan needs better hunting ground, even more than ThunderClan." And that's her soft-launching the Sunning Rocks invasion. A few RiverClan cats yowled their agreement, and Fireheart's fur bristled with apprehension. He shot a glance at Greystripe, remembering his friend's warning about Sunning Rocks. The new RiverClan leader meant to expand her territory, and the logical direction was across the river into ThunderClan land. The gorge cut her off from WindClan territory, and all her other borders were bounded by two-leg farms. But Bluestar had not understood the veiled threat. When the RiverClan leader fell silent, she dipped her head graciously. "You're right, Leopardstar," she meowed. "RiverClan has endured hard times. Yet your cats are so strong and noble that I know you will survive." Leopardstar looked taken aback. As well she might, Fireheart thought. The old Bluestar would never have missed the ominous promise in Leopardstar's words. Tigerstars took a step toward the ThunderClan leader. "Think carefully before you threaten WindClan, Bluestar," he warned. "There will never be peace in the forest if—" Bluestar bared her teeth and snarled at him, her fur bristling with fury. "Don't talk to me about peace," she hissed. "I told you to keep out of this. Unless you're allying yourself with that thief over there." Fireheart watched Tallstar stalk over to Bluestar, and he guessed that the WindClan leader was barely managing not to spring at her throat. "If you want to fight, you'll have one, Bluestar," he growled. Not waiting for a reply, he leaped down from the rock. Tigerstar exchanged a glance with Leopardstar, and both leaders followed, leaving Bluestar alone. Fireheart glanced at the sky again, hardly able to believe there was no sign from StarClan to show that they had seen the gathering descend into hostility. Did that mean StarClan wanted a war between the clans? As Bluestar scrambled down from the rock, Fireheart looked around for the other ThunderClan warriors. "Cloudpaw," he instructed urgently. "Round up as many of our warriors as you can find, and send them to the base of the Great Rock. Bluestar will need an escort." His apprentice nodded and slipped away into the crowd. Fireheart saw Stonefur thrusting his way through the crowd toward Greystripe. "Are you ready?" the RiverClan deputy meowed. "Leopardstar wants to leave quickly." "On my way," Greystripe mewed, springing to his paws. His voice shook as he added, "Goodbye, Fireheart." "Goodbye," Fireheart replied. There was so much more he wanted to say, but once again he had to face the fact that his best friend belonged to another clan, and the next time they met could be in battle. Before the two RiverClan cats turned away, he sought desperately for the right words to speak to Stonefur. "Congratulations," he stammered at last. "I was glad to hear Leopardstar chose you as deputy. ThunderClan don't want trouble, you know." Stonefur met his eyes. "Nor do I," he meowed, "but sometimes trouble comes anyway." Fireheart watched them as they headed for the edge of the clearing, and noticed with a jolt that another cat had his gaze fixed on the RiverClan deputy. It was Tigerstar. Fireheart wondered what his thoughtful look meant. Was the ShadowClan leader sizing up a future ally? Or could he possibly suspect that the Tom was one of the kits Greypool had told him of, the kits that came from ThunderClan? After all, it was common knowledge that Stonefur and Mistyfoot had been raised by Greypool. If so, it wouldn't be long before Tigerstar realized who their real mother was. Both Stonefur and Mistyfoot looked very much like Bluestar. Fireheart was so preoccupied that it was a few moments before he realized that the cat sitting in the shadows beside Tigerstar was Darkstripe. He told himself that it was only natural for Tigerstar's oldest friend to seek him out at a gathering, but Fireheart didn't like it. He still wasn't sure of Darkstripe's loyalty. Springing to his paws, he pushed through the cats toward them. As he approached, he heard Tigerstar meow to his companion. "Are my kits well?" "Very well," the ThunderClan warrior replied warmly. "Growing big and strong, especially young Bramblekit." "Darkstripe," Fireheart interrupted him. "The gathering's over, or hadn't you noticed? Bluestar will want to leave shortly." "Keep your fur on, Fireheart." Darkstripe's voice was an insolent drawl. "I'm coming." "Go on, Darkstripe, you mustn't keep your deputy waiting," meowed Tigerstar. He nodded to Fireheart. His amber gaze was carefully neutral. Fireheart padded across the clearing to join Bluestar, with Darkstripe just behind him. The rest of her warriors were clustered around her, shielding her from the hostile glares and mutterings of WindClan. Her blue eyes still glowed with defiance, and Fireheart realized with a sinking heart that war between the two clans could not be far away. That's the end of chapter 10. Kinda long. So Bluestar has declared war against, God. And probably WindClan, so that's a good sign. Alright, let's move on to the last chapter for today, shall we? Chapter 11. Fireheart wakes up the next morning as the sun is rising. To his surprise, clan life is going on as usual. Repairing the camp, kits playing, cats hunting. There's a bit of tension, but nothing crazy. Fireheart looks around for Sandstorm, desperately wanting to talk about the gathering. Quote, "Fireheart." The voice was Bluestar's. Fireheart swung around to see his leader trotting across the clearing from her den. "Yes, Bluestar, what is it?" Bluestar jerked her head. "Come to my den. We need to talk." As Fireheart followed her, he noticed her jerky steps and twitching tail. She looked like a cat about to launch herself into battle, yet there was no enemy in sight. Yeah, she's in psychosis right now. Reaching her den, the blue-gray she-cat padded across to her bedding and sat there facing Fireheart. "You heard that hypocrite Tallstar last night," she hissed. "He refused to admit that his cats have been stealing our prey. So there's only one thing for ThunderClan to do. We must attack." Fireheart stared at her, jaws gaping. But Bluestar," he stammered. "We can't do that. Our clan isn't strong enough." He couldn't help remembering that they would have had 4 extra warriors by now if Bluestar had agreed to promote the apprentices, but he didn't dare mention that to her. "We can't afford to have warriors injured or maybe killed." Bluestar fixed her eyes on him in a look of fierce hostility. "Are you saying that ThunderClan is too weak to defend itself?" "Defending ourselves is very different from launching an attack," Fireheart meowed desperately. "Besides, there's no real proof that WindClan stole—" Bluestar bared her teeth. Her fur bristled as she rose to her paws and took a threatening step toward Fireheart. "Are you questioning me?" she snarled. With an effort, Fireheart stood his ground. "I don't want needless bloodshed," he told her quietly. "All the signs tell us that there's a dog loose in the forest, and that's what has been taking the rabbits. And I tell you that dogs don't wander alone. They come and go with their 2 legs. Then where did the dog scent come from?" "Silence!" Bluestar lashed out with one paw, barely missing Fireheart's nose. He forced himself to stand still. "We will travel tonight and attack WindClan at dawn." Okay, so she's resorted to physical abuse. She's gotta take a grippy sock vacation. Fireheart's heart lurched. It was an honor for a warrior to fight for his clan, but never before had he been faced with such an unjust battle. He did not want to shed ThunderClan or WindClan blood for no reason. "Did you hear me, Fireheart?" Bluestar demanded. "You will choose the warriors and give them their orders. They must be ready by moonset." Her eyes were blue flames. Fireheart almost felt they could sear him to ash, just as the fire had destroyed the forest. "Yes, Bluestar, but—" he began. "Are you afraid of WindClan?" the old leader spat. "Or are you so used to cringing before StarClan that you won't defy them and fight for the rights of your clan?" She paced to one side of her den, spun around, and paced back again, thrusting out her muzzle toward her deputy. "You disappoint me, you, out of all my warriors. How can I believe you will fight with all your strength when you question my order like this?" she hissed. "You leave me no choice, Fireheart. I will lead this attack myself." Objections raced through Fireheart's mind. Bluestar was growing old and losing strength. She was on her last life. She wasn't thinking clearly. But in the face of her fury, he could voice none of them. Instead, he dipped his head respectfully. "If you wish, Bluestar, then go and do as I ordered." She kept that fiery gaze trained on him as he backed out of the den. "You will come with us, but remember that I will be watching you," she growled after him. In the clearing outside, Fireheart shivered as if he had just dragged himself out of icy water. His duty was to choose the warriors for the attack on WindClan and tell them what Bluestar had ordered so that they would be ready to leave after moonset. Yet every hair on his pelt protested against this. A dog had stolen the rabbits, not WindClan. It could not be the will of StarClan to attack an innocent clan. Bluestar was simply wrong. Fireheart goes to Cinderpelt's den, hoping for some advice from her. When he reaches her clearing and calls out, there is no reply. He sticks his head in and sees that the den is empty except for neat herb stacks. He leaves the den, unsure of what to do now, and catches sight of Thornpaw walking by with a load of moss for the elder's bedding. Thornpaw tells Fireheart that Cinderpelt is out collecting herbs, but he doesn't know where. Fireheart stands motionless for a few moments, his head spinning with fear and confusion. He can't ask any other cats for advice because a deputy should never question his leader's orders. He can't even talk to Sandstorm because she's bound by the warrior code to obey her leader. So there's only one hope left. He goes back to the warrior den, meeting Brindleface on her way out. He explains to her that he's going to catch up on some sleep to be fit for a night patrol, and he can't bring himself to tell her what was really planned for that night. Brindleface's eyes soften with sympathy, and she tells him he does look a bit tired and that he's working too hard. So she leaves the den, and Fireheart is relieved to see that no other cats are inside. He curls up to go to sleep, hoping he can meet with Spotted Leaf and ask for her guidance. But he remembers his previous dream, when he had searched for Spotted Leaf in the dark and fearful forest and failed to find her. "Oh, Spotted Leaf, come to me now," he murmured. "I need you. I have to know what StarClan wants me to do." Not him wanting to find comfort in all 3 of his situationships. He does have a dream, quote, Fireheart found himself standing on the border of WindClan territory and looked across the stretch of bare moorland. A stiff breeze rippled over the grass, blowing through his fur. The moor was bounded by an eerie light, hiding the horizon and the land behind Fireheart. He looked back, expecting to see the oaks of 4 trees, though he could not remember traveling through the forest. But there was nothing there but the pale yellow glow. No cats were in sight. "Spotted Leaf?" he mewed uncertainly. There was no reply, but he thought he caught a faint trace of the sweet scent that always announced her presence. He stiffened, raising his head and parting his jaws so that he could drink in the beloved smell. "Spotted Leaf," he repeated. "Please come. I need you so much." A sudden warmth crept over him. A soft voice murmured, "I am here, Fireheart." He sensed that Spotted Leaf was somewhere behind him, and that if he turned his head he would see her. But he could not move. It was as if cold jaws were gripping him, keeping his gaze fixed on the windswept moorland. As he stood rigid, Fireheart gradually realized that Spotted Leaf was not alone. Another scent wafted over him, painful in its familiarity. Yellowfang? He whispered. Is that you? A faint breath stirred his pelt, and he thought he could hear Yellowfang's rusty purr. Oh, Yellowfang! He exclaimed. I've missed you so much. Are you okay? Have you seen how well Cinderpelt is doing? The words spilled out of him in his joy at the reunion with his old friend, but there was no reply, though Fireheart thought the purring grew stronger. Then Spotted Leaf's voice whispered softly into his ear. I have brought you here for a reason, Fireheart. Look at this place. Remember it. This is where a battle will not be fought, and blood will not be spilled. Then tell me how to stop it, Fireheart pleaded, knowing that she spoke of Bluestar's planned raid on the WindClan camp. But there was nothing more, only a gentle sigh that faded and became one with the wind. The paralysis that had gripped Fireheart released him, and he whipped around, but Spotted Leaf and Yellowfang had vanished. He drank in the air, desperate for the last trace of their scent, but there was nothing. Spotted Leaf, he wailed. Yellowfang, don't go! The light began to change, became the ordinary sunlight of a morning in leaf-fall, and instead of the moorland, Fireheart saw above him a ragged pattern of branches against the sky, the fire-damaged covering of the warrior's den. He lay on his side among the moss, panting. Fireheart? An anxious voice came from just beside him, and he turned his head to see Sandstorm. She licked the fur around his ear. Are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. Fireheart dragged himself into a sitting position and flicked his ears to shake off the clinging moss. Just a dream, that's all. I've been looking for you, Sandstorm went on. We didn't see anything suspicious on the dawn patrol. Mouseford told me what happened at the gathering. And the pile of fresh is practically all gone. I thought we could go and hunt. I can't, not just now, Sandstorm. I've things to do. But if you could take a patrol out, that would be great. Sandstorm gazed at him, the sympathetic look in her eyes fading. Well, okay, if you're too busy. She sounded offended, but Fireheart didn't know how he could explain. I'll get Brindleface and Brackenfur to come. She rose to her paws and stalked out without looking back at him. Fireheart, buddy. You have no idea how women work. Fireheart licked his paw and rubbed it over his face, clinging to the precious memory of his dream. A battle will not be fought, and blood will not be spilled, he repeated to himself. Was Spotted Leaf trying to tell him not to worry, that somehow StarClan would stop the fighting? Or did she mean that it was up to him to see that no blood was spilled? Fireheart was tempted to leave it all in the paws of StarClan. What could he do when his clan leader had given him her orders? But if he obeyed Bluestar, wouldn't he be going against the will of StarClan? And even more, against all his instincts of what was right for his clan? Fireheart made up his mind. Whatever he had to do, ThunderClan must not fight WindClan. And that's the end of Chapter 11, and that is where we're going to end for today. So, in conclusion, Bluestar wants to fight God. Fireheart does not understand how women's brains work. They might be going to war with two clans at one time. Really not a good situation to be in. So, let's all join a prayer circle. Let's all join hands and pray for ThunderClan, because they need it. Unless you're not religious like me. Anyway, that's it for today. Very, very interesting episodes we're having with this book. The plot is really good. I forgot how good this book was, but yeah. Alright. I will see you next week. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and may StarClan light your path.